They say you're wasting your potential. But worse than that, deep down, you know it's true. Every time you delay, every time you make an excuse, every time you let hesitation choke your ambition, you are digging your own grave. Your dreams rot before they even take form. Not because you lack skill, not because you lack intelligence, but because you refuse to act. The truth is brutal. Most people will die without ever realizing their potential. Not because the world stopped them, not because fate conspired against them, but because they chose inaction over effort. They allowed fear, laziness, and comfort to strangle their dreams. They waited for the right time until their bones grew old and their souls grew tired. They chose to exist, not to live. You think you have time. You think your plans can wait. But time is a predator, devouring your life with every wasted minute. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." Those words are not just philosophy. They are a warning. The luxury of time is an illusion. And every day you fail to act, you draw closer to a death unfulfilled. The harsh reality is this: you have the power to change, to create, to rise above mediocrity. But power means nothing without action. The Stoics knew that wisdom without action is as useless as courage without battle. Knowing the right path is meaningless if you refuse to walk it. Epictetus taught that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. And the greatest suffering of all is realizing that your lack of action was your greatest enemy. What follows are the principles to force yourself to act. Not when you feel ready, not when life becomes easier, but now. Because hesitation is the language of failure. If you want to break the chains of passivity, if you want to rise from the ashes of your own complacency, you must act with ruthless determination. This is Victory Stoic, where pain is transformed into power and hesitation is obliterated by sheer will. Subscribe to Victory Stoic now if you're ready to conquer your own mind. Like this video if you feel the fire burning within you. Comment below with your battle cry, "I will act," or share your story, your victories, your struggles, your resurrection. Because true strength is forged through relentless action. Let's begin. Number 1. The mind of a conqueror. Control and acceptance. The world is a brutal, indifferent battlefield where the only certainty is uncertainty. To survive, to thrive, you must adopt the mindset of a conqueror, someone who shapes their reality through ruthless control over their own mind and actions. This begins with a fundamental truth the Stoics embraced with relentless clarity. Control what you can, accept what you cannot. Everything else is noise, illusion, distraction. Seneca wrote, "Fate leads the willing and drags along the reluctant." This is not just philosophy, it is a call to arms. If you willingly accept the things outside your control, you walk with fate. If you resist, fate will drag you down like a prisoner bound in chains of his own making. The conqueror's mind is built on this principle. Focus only on what you can change. Everything else is the dust beneath your feet. Consider the story of Richard, a 35-year-old entrepreneur from Chicago. For years, he dreamed of launching his own tech startup. He spent endless nights crafting the perfect business plan, obsessing over every minor detail, terrified of failure. He blamed the market, the economy, his lack of connections, anything and everything outside of himself. His fear of circumstances beyond his control paralyzed him into inaction. Months passed, then years. He watched others succeed while he remained stuck in the same cycle of hesitation and regret. One night, out of sheer frustration, Richard stumbled upon the writings of Seneca. The line that shook him awake was simple, yet devastating. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more. That is poor. Richard realized that his craving for certainty, for control over external factors, was a form of poverty. He had been obsessing over things he could never truly command: market trends, investor interest, external approval, while neglecting the only thing he could control: his own actions. Psychology confirms what the Stoics understood centuries ago. Research on locus of control, a concept developed by psychologist Julian Rotter in the 1950s, divides people into two groups: those with an internal locus of control and those with an external locus of control. Individuals with an internal locus of control believe they have power over their own lives through their actions and decisions. Those with an external locus of control believe their lives are dictated by fate, luck, or circumstances beyond their reach. Studies consistently show that people with a strong internal locus of control are more resilient, motivated, and successful. They act while others freeze. Richard realized he had been living with an external locus of control, blaming circumstances rather than confronting his own inaction. Determined to break free from his mental chains, he adopted the Stoic approach. He made two lists. On the first, he wrote down everything outside his control: market conditions, economic shifts, the opinions of others. On the second, he listed what he could control: his work ethic, his learning, his strategic decisions, his persistence. He committed to focusing only on the second list and discarding the first from his mind entirely. The result was transformation. Richard launched his startup, not with perfection, but with action. He stopped worrying about things beyond his reach and directed all his energy toward what he could control. The rejection emails from investors no longer fazed him. Instead of seeing them as failures, he saw them as lessons. His startup grew, not because the market suddenly became favorable, but because his mindset shifted from one of victimhood to one of conquest. The Stoics recognized that acceptance is not passivity. It is the act of shedding unnecessary burdens to move with greater speed and strength. Marcus Aurelius advised, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The conqueror's mind sees the world as it is, not as he wishes it to be. By stripping away illusions, he is free to act with clarity and conviction. The modern world is plagued by anxiety, largely because people obsess over what they cannot control. Social media amplifies this weakness, making us feel powerless in the face of global events, societal pressures, and the judgment of strangers. Yet, the truth remains unchanged. Your mind is the only territory you truly own. Everything else is subject to fate's whims. The conqueror does not waste energy trying to control the uncontrollable. He directs his will toward the only battlefield that matters: his own thoughts and actions. This principle is reinforced by cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, a widely used psychological approach designed to challenge and change unhelpful cognitive distortions. One of the core techniques of CBT is thought record keeping, writing down automatic thoughts, identifying cognitive distortions, and replacing them with rational, empowering beliefs. The Stoics did this naturally. Their writings are filled with reminders to challenge assumptions and to focus only on what is within their power to change. Epictetus taught, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the views which they take of them. Your suffering is not caused by events themselves, but by your interpretation of those events. Accepting this truth does not mean giving up. It means arming yourself with a sharper weapon. The mind of a conqueror slices through illusion, through doubt, through fear, leaving only what is real and within your control. Weapons of the mind. Strategies to build the conqueror's mindset. 1. Create 2 lists of war. On one page, write everything you cannot control. On another, write everything you can. Destroy the first list, keep the second, review it daily. This exercise reinforces your focus on what truly matters. 2. Daily journaling as battle reports. Inspired by Marcus Aurelius's meditations, write down each night what you did that was within your control. Reflect on where you wasted effort chasing illusions. 3. Thought records, CBT technique. When overwhelmed, write down your thoughts, identify distortions like catastrophizing or mind reading, and replace them with rational statements. 4. Visualize your warpath. Not as something distant and perfect, but as a battlefield too. Be conquered through daily action. Focus only on the steps you can take today. The mind of a conqueror does not seek comfort. It seeks clarity. It seeks mastery over itself. Richard learned that true power is not found in the approval of others or the alignment of external circumstances. It is found in the relentless pursuit of action within one's own domain of control. And once he embraced that truth, nothing could stop him. Number 2. Detachment. Become the mountain amidst the storm. The world around you is a chaotic ocean. Waves crashing, tides shifting, storms brewing with merciless ferocity. And most people are ships tossed endlessly across this turmoil, steered by nothing but their emotions. Fear, anger, doubt, envy, desire, all of them churning and colliding until no direction remains clear. To act decisively, you must detach yourself from these emotional tempests and become something far greater. You must become the mountain. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't feel harmed. Don't feel harmed, and you haven't been." This is not simply a philosophical platitude. It is a declaration of absolute power. It is the realization that you can decide what affects you. To a Stoic, the world's madness is like the howling of the wind. It can be deafening, but only if you allow yourself to hear it. Imagine Jack, a 29-year-old lawyer living in New York City. He was ambitious, relentless, always striving for perfection in his career. But perfection, he found, was elusive. The more he tried to control every aspect of his job, the more his emotions twisted him into knots. Every mistake, every criticism, every moment of perceived failure felt like a personal attack. When he didn't make partner after 5 years of grueling effort, his anger and disappointment consumed him. He spent weeks raging against his bosses, the system, and even himself. His mind was a storm, fury crashing against regret, self-pity flooding into despair. But one evening, while nursing a drink in a dimly lit bar, he stumbled upon a quote by Marcus Aurelius. "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Something clicked. Jack realized he had been reacting to everything as if it were a personal offense. His emotions were the storm, and he had been drowning in them. But what if he didn't have to fight the storm? What if he could simply rise above it? Modern psychology supports this Stoic insight. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, one of the most effective methods for combating anxiety and depression, emphasizes the need to separate emotions from rational thought. It teaches that while you cannot always control how you feel, you can control how you interpret and respond to those feelings. This concept, known as cognitive restructuring, aligns perfectly with the Stoic practice of detachment. Jack began practicing a technique he called the mountain mindset. Each morning, he visualized himself as a massive, immovable mountain surrounded by raging storms. The wind could howl, the rain could lash against him, but he remained firm, unshaken. Before every major task or presentation, he repeated a mantra inspired by Marcus Aurelius. The storm is only an illusion. The mountain is the truth. This mental exercise allowed Jack to separate his emotions from his actions. Instead of reacting impulsively to stress or frustration, he learned to acknowledge his feelings without being consumed by them. This detachment didn't make him cold or unfeeling. It made him stronger. His performance at work improved, not because his circumstances changed, but because his mindset did. When he eventually did make partner, it wasn't through sheer talent or luck. It was through mastery over his own mind. The Stoics were not advocating for the suppression of emotion. They understood that emotions are natural, unavoidable, and often valuable. But they also recognized that emotions, left unchecked, become tyrants. A conqueror's mind does not eradicate feeling, it commands it. When the world crashes against you with fury and chaos, your power lies in your ability to remain steady, to be the mountain, indifferent to the storm. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This concept of detachment is not about isolation or numbness. It is about clarity. It is about seeing things as they are, not as your emotions paint them to be. In a world driven by emotional reactions, true power belongs to those who can stand firm and remain untouched. Detachment is not the absence of feeling. It is the mastery of feeling. And once you achieve it, nothing can truly harm you. Techniques to strengthen your mountain. Mindset. 1. Visualization. Every morning, close your eyes and imagine yourself as a towering mountain. Visualize the chaos of the world swirling around you, but never moving you. Repeat the mantra. The storm is only an illusion. The mountain is the truth. 2. Thought journaling. When you feel overwhelmed, write down your emotions. Identify which ones are productive and which are distractions. Separate yourself from the turmoil by observing your thoughts objectively. 3. Breathing exercises. When emotions threaten to consume you, take slow, deep breaths. Focus only on your breath, allowing your mind to settle like calm water. 4th, Stoic reflection. At the end of each day, ask yourself, what events today did I allow to disturb me? What could I have faced with greater calmness? How can I do better tomorrow? 5. Embrace discomfort. Purposely expose yourself to challenging situations. By training your mind to remain steady in discomfort, you strengthen your ability to detach from chaos when it truly matters. The storm will always rage. It is the nature of life. But your mind can be like the mountain, immovable, resilient, eternal. Detachment is not surrender. It is the highest form of power. As Jack learned, the world will test you, break you, and try to bury you. But if your mind remains steady, nothing can destroy you. Number 3, the ruthless passage of time. Every second is a blade. Time is not your enemy. It is your judge, your executioner, your final arbiter. It watches you with relentless indifference, counting each second with cold precision. And while most people fear death, the true terror lies in time itself. Because it is not death that steals your life, but the endless moments you waste, hoping for a better tomorrow. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." This was not a warning. It was a commandment, a reminder that the present moment is all you ever truly possess. Everything else is an illusion. The past is buried and untouchable. The future is a fog that may never clear. Only the now exists, and yet most people squander it like an inexhaustible resource. Consider Daniel, a 40-year-old architect living in Seattle. For years, he spoke of his grand ambition to start his own design firm, a place where creativity would reign unshackled by corporate bureaucracy. He made sketches, talked endlessly about his vision, even built a portfolio that showcased his best work. But years passed, and nothing materialized. Daniel was always waiting for the perfect time. When he had more money, when the economy improved, when his current job became unbearable enough to force him into action. One morning, Daniel's father passed away unexpectedly. A sudden heart attack. No warning, no time for goodbyes. It shattered him. As he sorted through his father's belongings, he found an old notebook filled with unfulfilled dreams and plans. His father had been a man of ambition, but never of action. He always postponed his dreams, thinking he had more time. Now, his life was reduced to faded ink and forgotten aspirations. The realization hit Daniel like a sledgehammer. He saw himself in his father's wasted dreams, his own goals left to gather dust. It was then he remembered the words of Marcus Aurelius, "You could leave life right now." The urgency of it was like a fire in his veins. He understood that waiting was the same as surrendering. Psychology reinforces this urgency. The concept of temporal motivation theory, developed by Piers Steele, states that our motivation to complete a task is directly related to how much time we believe we have left to accomplish it. When deadlines are distant, procrastination thrives. When time feels short, action becomes inevitable. The problem is, most people live their lives under the illusion that their deadline is far away. Daniel decided to destroy that illusion. He created a new set of rules for himself. Every goal, no matter how small, had a deadline. A ruthless, unforgiving deadline. Whether it was completing a design project, learning a new skill, or even simply finishing a book, every task was assigned a specific date and time. He forced himself to act as if death could come for him at any moment. The transformation was immediate. Daniel quit his job and launched his own firm within 6 months. He burned through his savings, took risks he had previously feared, and confronted failures with an intensity he had never known. Instead of waiting for perfect conditions, he embraced the imperfect present with brutal determination. The pressure of his own deadlines fueled him, forcing him to act instead of ponder. The Stoics understood that time is not a river that flows endlessly. It is a dwindling reservoir, and every moment wasted is a theft from your own life. Seneca, in his essay on the shortness of life, stated, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. Life is long if you know how to use it." This principle is not about fear-mongering. It is about recognizing the power of urgency. When you force yourself to act with the awareness that time is always running out, procrastination becomes unthinkable. The mind sharpens, the will hardens. The conqueror's mindset thrives under pressure. because it understands that pressure is nothing more than a reminder of mortality. Most people live as if they will never die. They let opportunities slip by, like grains of sand through open fingers, believing they will always have another chance. But time is merciless. It gives nothing back. And every moment you waste is a moment forever lost. The war against time. Strategies for relentless action. 1. Set ruthless deadlines. For every goal, establish a deadline that forces you to act, not weeks or months away, days, hours. Train yourself to feel the urgency. 2. Daily reflection. Inspired by Marcus Aurelius's meditations, end each day by asking yourself, what did I accomplish today? What time did I waste? How can I use tomorrow more effectively? 3. Countdown visualization. When you feel tempted to procrastinate, visualize your remaining time as a countdown. Every wasted second is a step closer to the end. Let that realization ignite you. 4. Destroy the illusion of endless time. Write down the tasks you have postponed. Assign deadlines to each and treat them as if they are matters of life and death. 5. Embrace imperfection. The perfect moment will never arrive. Begin now, regardless of your circumstances. The conqueror acts amid chaos, not in spite of it. Daniel's success was not a product of brilliance or talent. It was the result of urgency, the understanding that every day wasted is a day lost forever. When you confront time with the intensity of a warrior facing his final battle, procrastination becomes cowardice. Action becomes inevitable. You could leave life right now, and the only question that matters is, what will you do before you go? Number 4. Building empires from dust. Small steps, great victories. Rome was not built in a day, nor was any empire that has ever risen from the ashes of obscurity. It was crafted brick by brick, with the sweat of thousands and the relentless will of a few. The Stoics understood this truth better than most. They believed in the power of incremental progress, the slow, steady march toward greatness. Seneca wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." This is not mere rhetoric. It is a declaration of how greatness is achieved, through persistence, through patience, through the embrace of small steps. Ethan, a 33-year-old marketing executive from San Francisco, always dreamed of writing a novel. He envisioned something epic, something powerful enough to redefine his life. But every time he sat down to write, the sheer magnitude of the task paralyzed him. He would write a few pages, hate them, then delete everything. Weeks would pass, months. The novel remained a ghost, haunting him with its unfulfilled potential. Ethan believed that greatness required massive leaps, explosive moments of inspiration, not the mundane routine of daily effort. But that belief was his greatest weakness. One day, during a business trip, he stumbled upon a biography of Theodore Roosevelt. What struck Ethan most was not Roosevelt's political achievements, but his relentless, methodical work ethic. As a young man, Roosevelt struggled with poor health and personal tragedy. Instead of collapsing under the weight of his circumstances, he built himself anew through the simplest of actions: daily exercise, relentless study, and unwavering consistency. Roosevelt's philosophy mirrored that of the Stoics. Marcus Aurelius himself wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Roosevelt did not overcome his obstacles through grand gestures, but through consistent, disciplined effort. His empire was built from dust, brick by brick, moment by moment. Ethan realized he had been trying to build his empire with explosions rather than with dust. He expected brilliance to emerge fully formed, without acknowledging that even the greatest works are assembled through steady accumulation. Inspired, he adopted a new approach. He set a rule for himself: write 500 words a day. Not perfect words, not even good words, just words. The first week was grueling. He hated most of what he produced, but he kept going. Each day, he added another 500 words to the pile. By the end of the month, he had written over 15,000 words. Not a masterpiece, but a foundation. The act of writing daily transformed him. It taught him that progress is a process, not an event. Psychologists refer to this as the principle of marginal gains, a concept popularized by British cycling coach Dave Brailsford. By making small, consistent improvements, each seemingly insignificant on its own, an athlete, an artist, or a leader can achieve monumental results over time. Brailsford's team achieved unprecedented success by focusing on minor adjustments, from the fit of cycling gear to the diet of each athlete. The lesson was clear: small steps compound into extraordinary victories. Ethan applied this principle relentlessly. Every day, he wrote his 500 words. Some days were brutal, others flowed effortlessly, but the ritual itself became the true source of power. After 6 months, Ethan completed the first draft of his novel. It was rough, unpolished, riddled with flaws, but it existed. From that foundation, he revised, edited, refined. His novel became something real, something he could mold and perfect. The Stoics understood that life itself is a process of incremental improvement. Seneca advised, "The path to greatness is seldom straight. It winds, it bends, it tests the traveler's endurance." To the Stoics, progress was a journey, not a destination. To demand perfection from each step is madness. To demand progress from each step is wisdom. Ethan's success was not built on sudden inspiration or extraordinary talent. It was built on daily action, on the accumulation of small victories. The key was consistency, not brilliance. And this truth applies to all areas of life. Fitness is not achieved through one perfect workout, but through thousands of imperfect ones. Knowledge is not gained through a single revelation, but through relentless study. Relationships are not built through grand gestures, but through countless moments of presence and understanding. The Dust to Empire Technique. 1. Set daily quotas. Define small, achievable goals for each day. Whether it's writing 500 words, exercising for 30 minutes, or learning a single concept, consistency is the key. 2. Track your progress. Keep a journal where you record your daily efforts. Focus not on perfection, but on accumulation. Measure the effort, not just the result. 3. Embrace imperfection. Allow yourself to produce flawed work. Every failure is a building block. Progress is forged through persistence, not perfection. 4. Reflect and adjust. At the end of each week, review your progress. Adjust your goals if necessary, but never abandon them. 5. Visualize the empire. Every day, remind yourself of the larger goal. Picture your success, not as a sudden achievement, but as the inevitable result of continuous effort. Ethan's novel was completed not through bursts of inspiration, but through the grind of daily effort. The same applies to all pursuits worth achieving. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Do not be ashamed of mistakes, and thus make them crimes." The Stoic Conqueror understands that mistakes are inevitable. They are merely steps along the path. To abandon the journey out of frustration or impatience is to surrender to weakness. Building an empire from dust requires faith in the process. Every small step, every imperfect attempt, every moment of discipline adds to the fortress you are creating. The mountain is not built from boulders but from grains of sand, and every grain matters. Number 5. Seizing the mind's reins. Control negative thoughts before they control you. The greatest battles are not fought on distant fields drenched in blood, but within the dark corners of your own mind. Negative thoughts are insurgents, quietly infiltrating your consciousness, breeding doubt, fear, anger, and resentment. Left unchecked, they consume you. They become the architects of your own destruction, the very weapons you forge against yourself. The Stoics understood this with brutal clarity. Epictetus wrote, "It is not things that disturb us, but our interpretation of them." He knew that reality itself is neutral. It is our perception that distorts it, twisting harmless events into monstrous specters. Negative thoughts are distortions, illusions wielded by a mind not yet under your control. To conquer the world, you must first conquer yourself. Consider James, a 28-year-old financial analyst living in Chicago. His career was promising, his skills respected, but his mind was a prison built by his own negativity. Every minor mistake became a catastrophic failure in his eyes. If a colleague corrected him, he perceived it as an attack. If he missed a deadline, he viewed himself as incompetent. His mind would spiral, building elaborate narratives of worthlessness and impending failure. One morning, after a presentation that he felt had gone poorly, James found himself spiraling into despair. He replayed the event over and over, each replay making his perceived failure more vivid, more painful. The truth was, the presentation had been adequate. Not extraordinary, but sufficient. But James's mind was his own worst enemy, painting failure where none existed. Seeking relief, he turned to the writings of Marcus Aurelius. One passage hit him like a hammer. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. James realized that he was poisoning himself, creating a hell of his own making. The problem was not the presentation, it was his interpretation of the presentation. His mind had seized control, dragging him down like an anchor lashed to his legs. Modern psychology supports this Stoic insight. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, one of the most effective methods for treating anxiety and depression, focuses on identifying and restructuring negative thought patterns. This process, known as cognitive restructuring, aims to dismantle irrational thoughts before they can inflict damage. The Stoics practiced this long before it had a name. James decided to implement a technique known as thought auditing. Every time a negative thought appeared, he would write it down. By externalizing his thoughts, he could confront them as separate entities rather than internal truths. The process was brutal at first. The negativity seemed overwhelming, unending. But through repetition and discipline, he began to recognize patterns. His mind had been generating distorted thoughts out of habit, not reality. Within a month, his progress was undeniable. Whenever a negative thought surfaced, he dissected it like a surgeon removing cancerous tissue. What evidence supports this thought? What evidence contradicts it? Is this thought based on fear or fact? The more he questioned his mind, the more he realized how often it lied to him. James transformed his approach at work. Instead of seeing criticism as an attack, he viewed it as an opportunity for growth. Instead of fearing mistakes, he welcomed them as part of the learning process. His productivity increased, his confidence strengthened, and most importantly, his peace of mind returned. Negative thoughts are parasites. They thrive in darkness, feeding on your insecurities and magnifying your weaknesses. But they can be tamed. They can be silenced. The key is to confront them, to drag them from the shadows into the light of reason. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Reject your sense of injury, and the injury itself disappears." The implication is clear. Pain, failure, disappointment. These are all filtered through your own mind before they ever reach you. By changing your interpretation, you change your reality. Mental warfare. Strategies to dominate negative thoughts. 1. Thought auditing. Each time a negative thought arises, write it down immediately. Treat it as an external problem, something to be solved rather than experienced. 2. Dissect and destroy. Challenge every negative thought by asking, "Is this true?" What evidence supports it? What evidence contradicts it? What would a neutral observer say? 3. Reframe the negative. Turn each negative thought into an opportunity. Instead of "I failed," think "I learned." Instead of "I'm not good enough," think "I am improving." 4th, daily Stoic reflection. Inspired by Marcus Aurelius's meditations, spend 5 minutes each night reviewing the day's negative thoughts. Identify which ones were irrational and replace them with constructive perspectives. 5. Mindfulness breaks. Throughout the day, pause for a moment of silence. Observe your thoughts without judgment. Let them pass like clouds drifting through the sky. Recognize their impermanence. James's transformation was not immediate. It was a process, a battle fought day after day. But each victory, however small, added to his strength. By controlling his thoughts, he gained control over his actions. And by controlling his actions, he began to shape his reality. The Stoics believed that the mind, once mastered, becomes an invincible fortress. Thoughts are weapons. If wielded recklessly, they can destroy you. But if sharpened and controlled, they become the instruments of your triumph. The mind of a conqueror is not free of negativity. It is free from being controlled by negativity. And once you seize that control, nothing can break you. Number 6, turning pain into power. Forge strength from suffering. Pain comes in many forms, but nothing shatters the soul more brutally than the loss of someone you once believed would walk beside you for life. The pain of losing a loved one is a storm that drowns everything else. Ambition, hope, even the will to act. Yet, for the Stoic, pain is not the end. It is the crucible where strength is forged. Seneca wrote, "Sometimes even to live is an act of courage." This was not a poetic sentiment. It was a recognition of the brutal reality that life at times demands survival against overwhelming pain. And if you can survive, you can transform. Consider Michael, a 42-year-old entrepreneur from New York. He built his business from nothing, alongside his wife Emily. For years, they worked relentlessly, sacrificing time, energy, and comfort to create something meaningful. Emily was not just his partner in business. She was his anchor, his inspiration, the person who pushed him when he doubted himself. They planned everything together, the business expansions, their travels, their future. Then, one winter night, Emily's car was struck by a drunk driver. She was gone within hours. Michael's world collapsed. Everything he had built, every achievement he once cherished, felt hollow. Days blurred into nights. Work became meaningless. His life, once guided by purpose, now drifted in a sea of grief. Months passed. The pain did not fade. It sharpened. But one evening, as he sat alone in their now empty home, he came across the words of Marcus Aurelius. Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight. It felt like an insult at first. How could this agony be nature's delight? How could such devastation have any meaning? But as he read deeper into Stoic philosophy, Michael began to understand. Pain was not something to be escaped. It was something to be confronted, absorbed, and ultimately transformed. Emily's death had left a void he could never fill, but that void could either consume him or become the foundation upon which he rebuilt his life. Modern psychology affirms what the Stoics knew centuries ago. Post-traumatic growth, PTG, is the phenomenon where individuals, having faced immense suffering, emerge stronger, wiser, and more determined. Unlike resilience, which is about returning to a previous state, PTG is about transformation, using pain as fuel to create something new. Studies have shown that those who confront their grief head-on, rather than avoiding it, often develop deeper appreciation for life, greater personal strength, and a renewed sense of purpose. Michael decided to channel his pain into action. He dedicated the company's next expansion to Emily's memory, launching a foundation that funded education for underprivileged children, something Emily had always dreamed of doing. Each milestone he achieved became both a tribute to her and a testament to his own growth. His business flourished, not because the pain had diminished, but because he had transformed it into a force of relentless motivation. Pain is like fire. It can consume you, turning everything you are into ash, or it can forge you into something unbreakable. The Stoics understood this. Epictetus said, "Difficulties show men what they are." Pain reveals the core of your character, but more importantly, it gives you the raw material from which greatness is built. Michael's story is not about recovery. It is about transformation. He understood that pain, like any other force, can be shaped, directed, and converted into power. Instead of asking why tragedy had struck, he asked how he could use that tragedy to build something greater. From pain to power, practical strategies to harness suffering. 1. Purposeful dedication. Take something you have lost and dedicate a part of your work or life to its memory. Like Michael did with his foundation, find a way to turn grief into action. Create daily rituals. Pain can paralyze you if you allow it to overwhelm your mind. Establish routines that force you to act, even when you don't feel like it. Morning exercise, evening reflection. Small rituals build momentum. 3. Channel pain into creation. Art, writing, building, mentoring. Find an outlet to. Transform suffering into something tangible. When pain has a purpose, it becomes fuel. 4th. Reflection and acceptance. Inspired by Marcus Aurelius's meditations, write about your pain every night. Confront it, understand it, accept that it exists, but refuse to be defined by it. 5. Set ruthless goals. Pain can weaken you or drive you. Set goals so ambitious that pain becomes irrelevant. Channel your grief into relentless action. Michael's transformation was not an overnight miracle. It was the result of relentless effort, of refusing to let pain dictate the course of his life. As Seneca once wrote, "Fire tests gold, suffering tests brave men." Pain itself is indifferent. It does not care if you succumb or overcome. That choice is yours alone. Your suffering is not the end. It is the raw material from which strength is forged. The world will break you. But if you choose to transform that pain, to forge it into something greater, then nothing can truly destroy you. Conclusion. True victors are not those who have never failed. They are the ones who keep moving forward even when their legs bleed, when hope is nothing but a flickering ember in a sea of darkness. Stoicism is not a philosophy of perfection or effortless success. It is a philosophy of relentless action, of rising from your own pain and failure with iron-willed determination. Action is not a luxury. It is a way of life. It is the only flame capable of pushing back the darkness, breaking the chains of hesitation, weakness, and fear. True warriors never wait for perfection. They move forward, even when the path is littered with thorns. If you feel the strength stirring within you, if you are ready to shatter all procrastination and forge yourself into something unstoppable, like, share, and subscribe to Victory Stoic. This is not just a channel. It is a community of those who refuse to be broken. Comment below with your war cry, action, or share your story, your journey, your failures transformed into power. This is where the weak are forged into the unbreakable.